Welcome to Creative Universe, your ultimate playground for all things anime and cartoons. Get ready to dive into epic adventures.
In 1996, when Aaravs Patel was 7 years old, he learned how loud silence could be. The hospital room had been full of noise just moments before machines beeping. Nurses speaking in quick, urgent tones, shoes squeaking across polished floors. Then, all at once, there was one long, steady sound. Flat, unchanging. A doctor knelt in front of him, speaking softly. Words like complications and sorry floated above his head. Aaravs didn't understand any of it. He only understood that his mom's hand, warm and steady in his, slowly loosened and didn't squeeze back. After that day, their small house in Columbus, Ohio, felt unfamiliar. Not different in the way furniture moves. Different in the way air feels before a storm. The refrigerator hummed too loudly at night. The heater clicked and groaned through the winter. The TV filled the living room with sound, but never warmth. Neighbors brought casseroles. Teachers spoke gently. The school counselor called him incredibly brave. Aaravs learned something important that year. When adults don't know how to fix something, they call you strong. By 9, he could make scrambled eggs without burning them. By 10, he knew how to set an alarm, catch the school bus, and sign his own permission slips. By 11, he stopped waiting for someone to say goodnight. Rain against his bedroom window used to make him feel safe. Now it reminded him that the world outside kept moving, whether he was ready or not. At school, kids didn't mean to be cruel. They just didn't know what to say. That's the kid whose mom died. They said it like a fact from a science textbook. Aaravs stopped raising his hand in class. Stopped joining birthday parties. Stopped talking about home. Loneliness became something he wore quietly, like an extra layer no one else could see. When he turned 14, he started working part-time at Thompson's Market, a small family-owned grocery store 3 blocks from his house. Mr. Thompson, the owner, had gray at his temples and kindness in his eyes. He paid Aaravs minimum wage and let him take home bread that didn't sell. One snowy evening, as wind rattled the windows, Mr. Thompson watched Aaravs struggle with a 50-pound bag of dog food. "You know," he said gently, "most kids your age are worried about basketball tryouts or video games." Aaravs adjusted his grip. "Some of us don't get that." Mr. Thompson didn't respond right away. He waited until closing time, until the lights were dimmed and the open sign flicked off. "Why don't you ever talk about your mom?" he asked. Aaravs kept facing the shelf, lining up soup cans. "Because talking doesn't change it." The answer sounded solid, practiced. But Mr. Thompson didn't to let it rest. "You think being strong means acting like you're fine?" he said quietly. "It doesn't." Something inside Aaravs cracked. "Do you know what it's like," he said, turning suddenly, "to sit alone at parent-teacher conferences? To come home to an empty house every day, to pretend you're not scared when the power goes out during a storm." His voice trembled, despite his effort to hold it steady. Mr. Thompson met his eyes. "I lost my dad when I was 15, he said. The admission hung between them. Not heavy, but steady. "You don't have to carry everything by yourself," he added. "Even grown men need help." That night, Aaravs cried in the store's stockroom, surrounded by boxes of cereal and canned beans. Not because he was weak, but because someone finally saw how tired he was. High school became less about survival and more about direction. Aaravs poured his energy into schoolwork. While other kids went to football games on Friday nights, he studied for SATs. He applied for scholarships with the kind of focus that comes from knowing there is no backup plan. He didn't resent the world anymore. He just refused to let it win. When he graduated at the top of his class, the principal shook his hand and said, "Your mom would be proud." For the first time, the words didn't feel like a knife. They felt like a promise. At 23, degree in education in hand, Aaravs stood outside a modest apartment complex with a set of keys resting in his palm. It wasn't luxury living, beige siding, narrow staircases, neighbors close enough to hear through the walls. But it was his. He unlocked the door and stepped inside. Sunlight poured through wide windows, warming the hardwood floors. A second-hand couch sat against the wall. Books were stacked neatly on a small wooden shelf. The kitchen was simple, but clean. He set a framed photograph of his mom on the shelf and draped her old knitted sweater over the back of a chair. "We did it, Mom," he said softly. A knock came at the door. Mr. Thompson stood there, smiling, holding a small green plant. "Housewarming gift," he said. "Every place needs something growing in it." They placed it near the window, where the light was strongest. That evening, rain began to fall. Aaravs, paus. For a moment, he was 7 again, listening to the storm, feeling small. But the feeling passed. Inside the apartment, laughter echoed. Aaravs had started tutoring neighborhood kids after school. Some struggling with math. Some just needing a quiet place to sit and be heard. The once silent rooms were now alive with questions, stories, and hope. He stepped out onto the balcony. City lights stretched into the distance. Cars moved steadily along wet streets. The rain touched his face, cool, gentle. The world had been cruel to a little boy. It had taken his safety, his childhood, his certainty. But it had not taken his future. He had taken the silence and turned it into understanding. Taken the pain and turned it into purpose. Taken the storm and built shelter from it. Behind him, the small plant leaned toward the light. Steady, growing. Aaravs looked up at the dark sky, no longer afraid of the sound of rain. For the first time in many years, the house he walked into at night wasn't quiet. It was home.